Dawn. The light shall wax, and then the light shall wane. Our twin suns might be capped with golden mane. Yet still man seeks the perilous void within. Betrayal becomes his most mortal sin. This task once broached shall look to bring man's fall. Against this fate shall mankind give their all. Comes battle now to slay both foe and friend. Naught but corpses to inter at war's end. Illumination and the Oath. Trinea slept. What is it that drives you? Hollow voices whispered when the visions began. Blood seeped into the ground. She saw a mangled, headless corpse abandoned in an alley, clutching several painted leather-bound sticks. A totem. Hers. You are an abomination, overlapping voices argued, their tones sharp and accusatory. Sentinels hunted her for murder, but Ditan held her tight, clasped in a makeshift shelter to hide them both. She could not run. Your duty is your purpose, the voices whispered. Distant thunder cut through her dissipating dream, and she jostled awake. Trinea clutched her blanket close, her breath catching. The fading dream unsettled her. A crisp breeze drifted through the window, left cracked open by her mother. Night's depths swallowed any hints of dusk or dawn near the horizon. She shivered, unsure if fear or cold bothered her more. Her mother snored across the room, unaware of Trinea's wakefulness. Good, she thought. I don't want to bother her with silly nightmares. Trinea slipped from her bed, bare feet padding softly across creaking floorboards. Each trembling step eased past the worst offenders, as she'd done plenty of times before. Closing the door behind her, Trinea entered the small kitchen and grabbed her mug. Her mother's kettle had grown cold. She poured some tea, then gulped the drink. Hints of mint and chamomile cooled her throat, and something else besides. Perhaps cinnamon? Cloves? It was just a dream, she whispered, her nerves calming as she grew more awake. Clouds shrouded the stars, obscuring her ability to tell the time. Thunder warned of an oncoming storm. Her dream's diminishing sense of oppressive dread mirrored the world outside. Tiny, multi-hued sparks of light popped in and out of view outside the window, distracting her from the horrific image of the dead body in her mind, with hints of blue and aquamarine fluttering past. Wisps, she called them. Curious, Trinea slipped on her shoes and threw a cloak about her shoulders, pulling it tight. She'd seen wisps before, but rarely so vibrant. Outside, they left lingering streaks in the air, a river inviting her to follow. I could use the diversion, she thought, but you shouldn't be here, she whispered aloud, hoping not to wake her mother. Go to sleep, Trinea commanded them, feeling foolish. Twinkling, the wisps moved a bit more, defiant. More sparkling hues flowed past her, insisting she follow. Wisps aren't dangerous, she thought. What do you want of me? Trinea asked. They shimmered in response and continued moving. She followed them down the road, matching their pace. Her legs warmed and the wisps dimmed, struggling to stay lit. A little further and they vanished altogether. Trinea pouted. Why did that happen? In the wisp's absence, her eyes acclimated to the darkness, and she recognized where they'd led her. Trees dominated the landscape near the edge of town. Arranged in a vast circle, their interweaving boughs left open a wide aperture in the center to allow the twin suns to shine down. Within, low-cut grass covered the broad glade where Illyrian's worshippers could kneel in supplication to the light. Her mother served as its sole priestess, and Trinea had grown up within its shade. The Chapel of Light, her mother called it. Seeing it, she decided to enter and pray for comfort despite the darkness. Trinea walked through the ample gap in the trees and proceeded to the glade's center, her confidence building. Nothing but the sounds of the night reached her. Owls hooted in the distance, and twigs popped under the startled feet of animals skittering through the underbrush. She knelt and pulled her awl from the pocket of her cloak. Uncapping the tiny needle, Trinea pricked her thumb and squeezed a drop of blood, black within the darkness of the glade. Rubbing her thumb across the tips of her fingers, she smeared blood across them, wincing at the pain. Satisfied she had coated each one, Trinea lightly touched them to the ground. By my purity I serve the tenets, she said, her voice murky amidst the rustle of branches. Bring me peace under the light. Earthy petrichor filled her nostrils, hinting at a rain from the oncoming storm. Her recitation, coupled with the natural smells and soothing location, calmed Trinea. A gust of wind followed another thundering rumble. The darkness is no place for you, young lady. An unexpected male voice hiding in the darkness shattered her peace. She spun to confront it. I wasn't expecting anyone to be here, she admitted. The voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't quite recognize it. She glanced about. Dawn threatened, a dimness rising amidst the gloom. A man crouched where she had walked, not an arm's length away. Shadows shrouded his face. Stringy hair fringed his bald skull, and an unkempt beard brushed his clavicles. Across his knees lay a gnarled wooden shaft, twisted and aged. His rancid aroma struck her as she turned to face him. Am I not free to worship as I please? He smiled at her. She must have mistaken the familiarity of his voice. None of the usual parishioners looked so disheveled. Trinea did not recognize him. I didn't mean to imply you couldn't, she answered. Who are you? I am me, and this is the chapel, isn't it? Some worship under the light, some worship under the night. A pink-orange glow crept at the horizon, filtering through the trees, searing away night's darkness. The shade of the leaves and branches muted its arrival. Trinea could make out his dingy clothes and the grime filling the crags of his worn face. Desperation assailed her, along with the need to flee, but he blocked her way. He studied the sky, his attention elsewhere. That makes sense, and I didn't mean to intrude. I'll leave you to your privacy, she offered, hoping he'd move from her path as she tried to edge around him. You are here for me, I think, the man said. Or I am here for you. Am I here for you? Around them settled an eerie grayness, confined to the grove's center. The gray cut through the sunlight, a separate thing from the impending dawn. You're here for me? Didn't I just say that? Why else would we come to this place on this night, if not to meet? I wasn't trying to meet anyone, she replied, frowning. And so you have met no one, he gestured grandly. Thus I am. Whatever are you talking about, sir? What does he mean, he's no one? Whatever you are here to talk about, miss. He grinned a toothy, dirty smile. I think perhaps what you expected and what you found do not match. Oh, what to do, what to do. I'm not here to talk about anything. Look, I'll leave you here. Just let me pass, she growled, her anger responding to her fear. So quick to turn, to flee. It's late. What dreams haunted you tonight? Are they why you run? You cannot escape them. Where you go, there they'll be. Why confront them in darkness when you can expose them to the light? My dreams aren't your concern. Who are you again? She asked, hoping this time his reply would make sense. Who do you need me to be? Pushing with his staff, he stood. Taller than Trinea, he looked down, gazing through and beyond her, his eyes unfocused. It is your turn to see, and for mine to be seen. The light shows us the way. He pointed at her chest. White light suffused the chapel, burning away the darkness until color muted and vanished, becoming shades of gray. Shadows hid behind the far side of the trees, outside the bounds of the wooded grove where the night remained untouched. Only impenetrable black remained overhead. Who are you? She asked once more. Trinea watched him, disturbed by the changing ambient light and troubled by the chapel's vibrant colors washing away. Her heart pounded, thudding in her chest so hard she could feel her pulse in her ears. The man looked skyward, tracking something unseen. This is right, is it not? Or is this a mistake? He thrust his staff into the ground. No! No! Yes? I see. He grinned as he conversed with an unheard voice. Wisps fluttered around him daintily, excited. Trinea edged around him, hoping to sneak quietly by while she remained distracted. Yes, yes, I'll tell her, I'll tell her, she said. She's who again? Ah, yes. Trinea. She froze. Terror thundered in her chest. He knows my name. He recognizes who I am. How? Truculent homunculus of perfunctory succulence. Sustenance? I don't think that's right. He blinked several times, struggling to find the correct words. The man looked lost and confused. Perhaps it is left. Is it? This is not at all what it was meant to be. Rings of trees, rings of threes. Knees! Trinea's legs weakened at the word, their strength stolen from her. His rambling did not echo. Instead, his voice clipped into silence. He's crazy, she recognized. Completely insane. Or is it me? Unsteady, Trinea wobbled back, then fell to her knees. This was not whatever solace she thought she'd find here. The man's voice dipped and shuddered, becoming gravelly and earthen, foreign. Untethered from light, fettered by weather, blood shall feast and turn to leather, and then... He shook his head, stuttering as he reasserted control. You're sure? He held out his thumb and forefinger in a twitching pincer gesture. His eyes shut and his rancid stench poured over her. She gagged, unable to avoid vomiting. Who are you talking to? She asked, wiping bile, tea, and what little remained of her dinner from her lips. To you? I'm talking to you. Who are you talking to? Oh, this is so much simpler when I have the right words. I compress. I digress. Digest? His eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the ground, convulsing. He thrashed in the mess she had made, oblivious to the foul mixture staining his clothes. Care for others, she reminded herself. Mind the tenets. I need to stabilize him. He's in need, though I doubt he truly follows the light. Trinea knelt by his head and clasped his ears, her skin crawling with disgust even as compassion warred against her revulsion. Raw sores and clammy flesh, caked with mud and grime, felt slimy and warm to her touch. An illness she did not recognize consumed him. I must get help. His body jerked as he spoke. You are the dream, the dreamer, the dreaming. Streaming! Do you stream, Trinea? Hush, she said, annoyed he knew her, but had not given her his name. You need to hold still, Mr. She fished for it, but he ignored her attempt. How may I address you? Your dreams, my dreams, their dreams. Dreams! Inseams! It seems. Dreams! The man cupped her face, pulling her down, their noses almost touching. She gagged again at the scent of rotting cloves or cinnamon on his breath, and gasped for fresh air. Pure white light enveloped them, banishing everything else from view. Something thudded onto the ground. Oh, that's where that was, he muttered. Trinea felt the transition, remembering awakening to nightmares cloaked as dreams. No, don't remind me, she said. Remind, mind, heed. Indeed, indeed, do not be blind. Observe the light. He gestured around them. This is what's left. This is what's right. He rasped. She could feel him, smell him. Shuddering, she let him go, and he released her at the same time. Dreams spun faster, and her terror grew. A lash struck her back. Pain. Ditan held his head high, defiant. Her friend vanished into fire, and Trinea screamed. So much suffering. A nobleman extended his hand to her. She recoiled, hating herself when she grasped it, believing he hated her. Sand chafed her skin. The sensations faded. Those weren't dreams, she realized. Trinea stumbled away from the ragged man, half standing and half falling, blinded by overwhelming light. He vanished into the brightness. Her breath became shallow and rapid. She slid, collapsing to her knees once more. Light help me, light guide me, she intoned, unsure if she was praying or reciting. In her blindness and haste to scramble from what she'd experienced, her hand slipped, rolling off a smooth, invisible sphere. When she touched its curved surface, smoothing warmth blazed into her fingertips and spread through her arms. Ask and the light answers, she thought. Wisps flickered nearby, colorless. Yes, it does. Simple whispers of thought caressed her mind, couched in comforting familiarity while remaining utterly foreign. She picked up the orb. Sleeker than glass, the heat emanating from it continued wicking up her fingers, its pleasant thrill irresistible. The orb filled both her hands, a weightless ball of light smaller than a human head. The man and her desire to help him faded, all her attention drawn to the orb as words tantalized her mind. Take the light, Trinea. She cradled the orb to her chest. Serve the light. Accept this burden. Impossibly far away, she heard the man cry out, muted and shallow, The oath! The oath! The light had separated them, yet his voice strained as he strove for her to hear. The light calls to me. Mamma will be proud. She knew little of her mother's path to becoming a priestess. The priestess. She had taken her mother's preaching of faith, but hadn't quite believed there was more to the light. This was belief, truth, and awe wrapped together in a soothing balm, her every need fulfilled. Is this what it was like for her? That was for her to experience. Is there an oath? What is it? More words trickled into her mind, grazing her comprehension. Do I say them? Waves of warmth between her hands pulsed while the essence of the oath became clearer and understanding dawned. Do no harm! Care for others! Serve yourself! The man yelled the tenets of Illyrian and the light, his voice sounding even quieter than before, distant, lost in the overwhelming brightness devouring her and her surroundings. He sounded very far away. This is what we are here for! Triumph rang in his voice. Do no harm. Care for others. Serve yourself. The whispers matched the man's voice, if not his intonation, driving home the source of the oath building within her thoughts, letter by letter, word by word. The tenets, she acknowledged. To serve the light, I must serve the tenets. That's what this is about, Trinea said, smiling at the purity enveloping her. I want this. The oath crystallized in her mind, its form made clear. It all made sense, even if nothing else did. Calm asserted itself. Land fell away, leaving her weightless yet euphoric. I swear to selflessly preserve the light, protect it from the darkness, and uphold the tenets. I accept the light, she thought additionally. Conviction filled her voice, surprising her. The oath is accepted. Receive this blessing. Trinea released the orb. It hung for a moment, then pulled itself into her chest, its warmth pushing through her extremities. What is happening? She asked. Floating with no reference point, Trinea felt no pain but had no control either. The overwhelming light vanished. Trying to reorient herself, she became aware of kneeling in the middle of the grove. Dawn broke, and the first of the twin suns began its arc through the morning sky. A crow cawed and flapped away, launching into the air. No hint of the man remained, save a muddied puddle of the ground, left by his thrashing. Alone and exhausted, she stumbled across the road to the rectory. Her pricked thumb throbbed in time with her head as she squinted against the growing dawn's light. She didn't remember why she had been to the chapel or how she had gotten there. Trinea glared in dismay at the mud and grass stains on her cloak. Mamma's going to be mad at me, she lamented.